Hello. Okay, so we are going to try this out and see how this goes. I did try and share this message yesterday, and obviously the message was not done. And so um, everything shut down and didn't work, and there was no recording and all that stuff. So we are going to try this again here today. And hopefully, first, you should look in the description of this live and of this recording to be able to see what those channeled messages were that came through. And that'll help at least direct you through the numbers that I'm going to talk about. So, the first thing I'm going to just read to you is the channeled message. That general channeled message, because it's going to be parts and pieces of that that I'm going to explain. All right, so here it is. The time to bathe in the energy of the perfect mirror, to walk the long mirrored hallway lit with candles of Pluto's return, to become the mirror image, identical parallels. It is the time to be the mirror image. Honoring right is left and left is right. Honoring the shadow as light and light as shadow. So basically, we have, oh, hey, glad you can make it. Um, we've got all super excited about the massive amount of twos in this last 2222222 portal, that we have kind of missed this other piece of what is really happening. So, starting on February 20th of 2022, if we drop the 20 out of the year 2022, when we write that, now it's 22 0 22, and it'll be the same kind of palindrome where it's the same on either side for the dates all the way from the 20th all the way to the 28th at the very end of the month. And why this is significant is because of what was coming out in that channeled message about being the perfect mirror, and being the mirror image and accepting the mirror image. So we are supposed to be pulling together these extremes to create something new. So, this coupling of the two. But it's usually a lot harder with a lot of resistance. Like, those extremes don't want to come together because we see them so much as opposites. But when we have a perfect mirror is when we look in the mirror and the image we see is the exact image. It's not the opposite. It's not the mirror image as we usually see it flipped around, but it's exactly the same. That's that identical parallels. And so when we have the same number on either side of a number in between, so we have like those palindrome numbers, we create that perfect mirror. And so, what's happening right now is this perfect mirror for energy flow has come in and has been in our space. I think this is why everybody has been seeing so many numbers and feeling so much energy moving throughout this month. But as soon as that 20th hit, it was a lot more. And so, we have this perfect mirror with the 22 on both sides, and it's opening up this way for energy to just smoothly flow through. So we have this great opportunity to be able to really examine how to bring these extremes together, how to make this coupling occur without having to really deal with a lot of the resistance. And so that's the biggest thing. Um, the other part of it is that when we have this time of perfect mirrors and identical parallels, um, we also are able to close the loop on these circles. So if we think about, we have these two extremes and they're at either end. But if we bring those extremes together and now they're together, so there is no end, now it's a circle. So now it's a cycle. So we can create this new cycling energy. So a lot of times when we think about cycling energy, we think about like karmic energy, where it's like, oh, you reap what you sow, it's going to come back to you. But we can create these cycles and this cycling energy with any type of energy that we're putting out. It could be something as simple as creating a habit or a pattern to create this cycling energy, all the way up to something big like karmic energy, whether it's positive or negative. Um, and so when we have this perfect mirror where the mirror images of each other are identical, now it's so much easier to bring those together, close the loop, and create this cycle. Okay, so one more thing, and then I'll take questions. So if you want to start putting questions in the chat, I'll get to those here in just a second. So I know a lot of people have been seeing numbers where there's like the zero in the middle and the same numbers on either side. So like 202, 303, or they have like a one in the middle. Is the ones that most people have been seeing. Sometimes two, where it could be 323 or 313. Those are also perfect mirrors, and so when you see those, it's almost like the universe is giving you a message of, hey, the energy is perfect right now to be able to have this energy flow smoothly and to close that loop and create this new cycle and to create this new cycling energy and take advantage of that cycling energy. Okay, so what questions do you have? I mean, I can keep going and explain some of the other numbers is what I'll do, but I'm open for questions. Because, like I said, I have not planned for this and didn't know what was going to come out. Any questions? Mhm. I've taught long enough to know to give a little bit of wait time. So I'll give a little bit of wait time. And then I'll just start breaking down some of this message. Mm. That's a great question. So the question is now the time to start something that you want to become a habit? Absolutely. Well, and it's not just that it's the time to do it, it's the time to do it if it's been hard for you or if there's a lot of resistance there, because right now with this perfect mirror, there's very little if no resistance at all. And so this is when you want to create new habits or new patterns in your life that have been difficult to create. Like this is the time where you can take some big leaps and really create something really big and new with that cycling energy because there's such little resistance. Good question. Any other questions? Okay, while you're thinking of some other questions, um, I'll go through some of these numbers. So the first number that we have listed is for perfect mirror. So that's when you have these identical parallels on either side. So there's nothing different about them. So we're not looking at these two images and trying to figure out what's different about them or their opposites. But it's with this perfect mirror now you can clearly see that they're both identical. And perfect mirror is 164. One something interesting that I meant to mention and forgot is most of these numbers that add up to 11 are included in the Pathway Through 11 series of videos that I made the last couple of weeks. So you can get more information on a lot of these numbers from those videos. Who knew that that's what they would be for? But that's what they're for. Um, so a perfect mirror is 164. That adds up to 11. But here with the perfect mirror, we're starting with that 4. So we're starting with a really stable, nice foundation. And with this stable foundation, we're able to get to a place of comfort that helps us bring us to a new beginning. So it's really um, emphasizing again where you now can create this new foundation pretty easily and come to a place of comfort pretty easily to get this new beginning when you have this perfect mirror and when you're experiencing the perfect mirror. The other one that I want to make sure that I hit is of Pluto's return. So in that channel's message, it's of Pluto's return. And on the 22nd of February, it was the Pluto's return for the United States of America, this country. And so what happened is Pluto was at the exact degrees, 27 degrees Capricorn, as when the Declaration of Independence was signed in 1776. And so what we're starting to see is we have this birth of a nation with the signing of the Independence, Declaration of Independence. And now we're kind of at this Pluto's return, which is like this midway point. And it may not be, it may be way off somewhere else. But what comes next after the birth is the death. And so that's also part of closing the circle is when you bring birth and death together, when you bring those extremes together and you close that cycle, now the important part is not the birth and not the death, it's the part in between. And that's what people are always trying to get us to recognize anyway, is that we need to recognize what's happening in between that time. And so this perfect mirror is in between those exact those identical parallels on either side. And so 22 adds up to 4. So just like 164, it's starting with this foundation. And it's setting up this foundation of coupling, of bringing together these extremes. And it's creating this momentum of coupling to create this foundation. And because it's a perfect mirror, it's much easier to do it. So now is definitely a time to look at what are these extremes that you need to bring together, and also to examine the parts in the middle. So if we were to go now and examine what happened from the time the Declaration of Independence was signed, we would probably find a lot of parallels in that historical record to things that are happening now leading up to this Pluto's return. And we could probably see the pattern of how those two ends would come together. And the part in the middle is what's important. That's that cycling energy, that repeat energy. So again, if you don't learn from history, you tend to repeat it. That's that cycling energy. And so we want to be able to take advantage of the cycling energy to be able to make it our own and create things that we want to create and not just be a victim to it. Okay, if you have any more questions, please put it into the chat. I have one other thing that I want to make sure to go over. And then I will answer questions and then we could be done. Um, so I want to make sure that it's very clear what the action items are, because I think that's the hardest part about these messages that we get, is we don't know what to do with them. It's like they're insightful and they're full of energy and they're amazing, but what do we do with them? And so the first thing is to really look at where are some of those extremes causing resistance in your life. And now is a really good time to start trying to bring them together, because there's such little resistance. And also where you want to create new cycling energy and take advantage of cycling energy. So, then to be more specific, this energy started on the 20th of February. And so on the 20th of February, the zero was the perfect mirror. And so, with a zero as a perfect mirror, this is that divine energy acting as a perfect mirror. And so that means anything that was divinely meant to happen, any of these patterns, these habits, this cycling energy that was meant to happen, was easily happening on that date. And so then on the 21st, it was any of these new beginnings that were destined to happen or that we were wanting to happen could be happening on those dates. Then the 22nd was coupling, is where we could easily bring those extremes together and create these new coupling. Yesterday with the third was growth. So we could create a lot of growth and a lot of cycles of growth. So I rushed through those because those are done. But for today we have a perfect mirror of 4, which now means that we can really use the energy of this day to examine a lot of our foundations. And when I say foundations, it's anything that creates stability in your life. So the way you think, the way you work, the way you interact with people, the way your relationships are, any of these foundations, this is the time to examine those foundations and see where you would want to use this perfect mirror of the 4 today to be able to break down any of those foundations that you no longer want. So, this is like a lot of shadow work. If you have foundations of trauma that are causing resistance for you to create these loving, cycling energy patterns, so examining your foundations and breaking down the ones that you don't any longer want, but then also using this energy of the day within this perfect mirror to create the cycling energy, to create the foundations. So use that cycling energy to create foundations that you do want. So start some new habits today. Create some new traditions today. Start some new mindset things, even if it's just doing a meditation of trying to break a mindset. That's would be a really good thing to do. Then the tomorrow with the 5, now it'll be really good to be able to use that cycling energy for change. So, wherever there's been change that you've wanted to make, but there's lots of resistance, tomorrow is the day where you can really focus in on using this cycling energy, using this perfect mirror to create that change and examine where is the change not happening because you're having a hard time bringing those extremes together, or you're having a hard time seeing how these two opposites can actually come together. Tomorrow would be a good day to be able to use that cycling energy to create that change. Then on the 6th, on the 26th, is now this time for comforts. And this is where you want to examine your comfort zones. Now, remember that our comfort zones aren't always a good thing. They sound good and comfortable and nice, but they're not always a good thing. And so we want to really look at what are the things that we're comfortable with that we really don't want to be comfortable with, or we really shouldn't be comfortable with. And then use that cycling energy to break those down. And this also is a time where you can create new comfort zones. So, if you really want to be comfortable in your meditative practice, if you really want to be comfortable in a new kind of lifestyle. Tomorrow, or the 26th, tomorrow, not tomorrow. The 26th is a really good day to be able to use that cycling energy to do that. Then on the 27th, this is a day to take a lot of the actions that have been in the flow of like your intentions, but you've had resistance to do it, whatever that resistance may be. The 27th is the day where now that resistance is going to be lessened around those actions in flow, that's 7. And so you will be able to get those things going. And then on the 28th, the 8 is cycling energy. So the 28th is the perfect day to really close those loops and create those new cycles and those new patterns, that new cycling energy that you want in your life. The other interesting thing about the 20th to the 28th is we live in a world of a 9 cycle. And I have a video on that too. But we live in this world of a 9 cycle where usually all of our cycles go from 1 to 9. And they start at 1 and they end at 9 and they cycle around. We don't have a 29th of February this year. And so this means that whatever you really are creating in this time period, any of these cycles that you're creating in this time period are going to be really hard to break. So that could be a good thing or a bad thing. It could be a really good thing if you're very, very intentional. And that's why I wanted to make sure that we got on here right away. If you're very intentional, then you can create these really good cycling energies that are going to be really hard to break. But if you do things unintentionally, or you don't use this time to like break down some of the cycles, any of the cycles that are created or solidified in this time are going to be very hard to break. So just pay attention to that. Okay. I'll give one more minute to see if there's any questions in the chat, and then I will bid you adieu. Any other questions? Okay. I don't see any. Going once, going twice. All right. So thank you for joining me. Hopefully this was helpful. But please do feel free to send me other questions in comments or email. And check out that Pathway Through 11 series, because all of these numbers are included in there as well. All right. Have a good evening.